A good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you're watching, around the globe, left, right, north, south, center, wherever you are. Welcome to your Sports Encyclopedia, a program that is to bring you up to speed with the sports business that has been happening throughout the course of the week. I am your host, Keith, and I welcome you to this show and can't wait to share with you more insights when it comes to the business of sports. How has been your weekend? How has been your week? Have you been going on well? Let's get into some sports business. So starting off our session today, of course, is the FUFA Big League. Obviously, as you know, East or West, home is best. Wherever you go, you'll always remember to come back home. So we're starting off, of course, back here in the East with the FUFA Big League. So as you all know, we are having two representatives from the eastern side of the FUFA Big League. That's to say precisely the Elgon region. That is Mbale Heroes Soccer Club and the Kataka Football Club. So these two clubs were in action over the weekend, of course this being match day 4 of the 2025-2026 FUFA Big League. And these teams have been in action. They were actually in action. Of course, they were taking on each other back home here. And as you can see on your screen, you can see the results. Of course, Kataka coming out as 1-0 winners, courtesy of an AK Marcus penalty that was taken on in the first half, ensuring that Kataka bag home all the 3 points at the Mbale City Stadium. And of course, leaving question marks to the Mbale Heroes, obviously, to see how good their performances have been. Of course, this being a local derby, had attracted people from all over, of course, but of course coming through locally, you got to see all kinds of people coming through to fund, to support their teams and to cheer them on. But of course, Kataka coming out as 1-0 winners. Should be noted that Kataka has been ahead when it comes to such a fixture, obviously, with of course their recent meetings, them winning all 3 of their previous encounters, and of course things not looking good for the Mbale based side, that is Mbale Heroes, who were previously in the StarTimes Uganda Premier League. And of course that goes on to question how they are preparing themselves when it comes to competition wise. But all in all, we hope to see the best. So of course the FUFA Big League has been going on. Of course, Kataka wasn't the only one playing. Of course, we had the likes of Wakiso Giants coming through and winning their game. Of course, 4-2 against Nebi Central, that is in the central region. And then we're having Citadel and Black Spur playing to a 0-0 draw. That is in Kampala, the Bugolobi best side. Karo Karunji and Ondupa, of course, Karo Karunji winning their game at Chamate against Onduparaka. And then Iganga United and Paida Black Angels winning, going to a 0-0 draw, of course, at the Saza grounds in Iganga. And then Yarangu United FC and Kigezi Homeboys, of course, both sides being in the west, drawing their game 0-0 still. Of course, then Kataka coming through to bag all 3 points against Mbale Heroes, of course, at the Mbale City Stadium here in Mbale. And of course, Wakiso Giants winning their game against Nebi Central. Then we're having Chinda Boys losing out to Solito Bright Stars, and finally Ntegenzuzi drawing their game against Young Elephants. So it goes on to show you how competitive this league has become, and everyone trying to fight for survival and also seeing that they can clinch promotion to next season's StarTimes Uganda Premier League. So all is left to see what's going to happen when it comes to the FUFA Big League. So away from the FUFA Big League, we're going to take it a little bit higher and look at some action in the StarTimes Uganda Premier League. Of course, the league that brings the country's best cream de la cream. That is, of course, here in Uganda. So we've been having some action going on in the StarTimes Uganda Premier League, and teams have been busy. Of course, shocker coming in from FUFA suspending the new format that has been bringing controversies when it comes to the competition side of things, and it looks like everyone had been heard. Of course, the football stakeholders, of course, that is the coaches, the players, and the fans, obviously, coming through and being heard when it comes to the competition format, and of course, being back to the old format. You could see the excitement that was on the on the football stakeholders' faces. So of course we had some action going through. Of course that is match day 4, and you could see the likes of Maroon and Calvary, of course, drawing their game 0-0, and Lugazi and URA, of course, playing to a 0 draw, of course, in Lugazi. That is the Lugazi Arena. And then you're having Bull surprising the new entrants, that is Buhimba Saints United Saints, of course, losing the game to Bull FC, of course, at the Njero Technical Center. And then KCCA overcoming all the odds to win against Express FC, that is Kwano Gwabanji, at the Nachivubo Ham Stadium. And then Kitara and Mbarara City, of course, playing from the west, but of course Kitara coming on ahead, winning the game 3-2. And then Vida and Police, which happened to be the game of the weekend. Of course, SC Vida coming through, winning their game 2-1, courtesy of Charles Lukwago, late winner at the Fufa Kadiba Center, Sports Center, of course, in Mengo. And then Gaddafi adding on, that is the Fisheries, adding on to the woes of NEC FC, who haven't stabilized or haven't recovered from the trauma they suffered while competing in the CAF Confederations Cup, and of course losing the game to Gaddafi, or what someone would talk as printeries or fisheries, of course, at the fisheries ground in Entebbe. And the other game that everyone would be looking or anticipating too, of course, that is Vipers and UPDF not being played because Vipers having continental duty, or of course having crashed out of the CAF Champions League preliminary stages. Of course, their game wasn't played, so a later date would be communicated, and teams would get to know how they are standing, obviously. So that has been the action that has been going on, of course, in the Star Times Uganda Premier League, and I must say it is becoming competitive day by day, because you get to realize that teams are bringing on what nobody expected. Obviously, we're having shockers coming through who expected NEC to lose, nobody, but now with the shopping they have done, of course, coming through and losing that game as well. And of course, Vida winning their game against Police FC, it goes on to show you how strong they are trying to bring themselves up and trying to see that they can clinch continental football come next term. And the other teams coming through as well. So we wait and see what's going to happen when it comes to the Star Times Uganda Premier League. So we're going to leave some bit of football and talk some bit of basketball, of course. And of course, the basketball, for the lovers of basketball watching out there, we're going to talk about some bit of the NBL playoffs, that is the FUBA National Basketball League playoffs. Of course, we are out of the regular season and now we are into the playoffs. Now, as you can see on your screen there, we're having the two giants, that is City Oilers and Nam Blazers, taking on each other in the playoffs final, of course. And you get to realize that City Oilers, who have not been having the best of regular seasons, having lost some key games, and of course some bit of players, of course, trading their game somewhere else, you get to realize that the two teams have come out and qualified for the NBL playoffs, and it goes on to show you how tough and how big they are, of course, when it comes to the basketball franchise here in Uganda. Of course, Namungo Blazers coming back from the qualifying round of the BAL, that is the Basketball Africa League, and of course hoping to see that they can make it to the next stage, but of course had to come back and finish up with their regular duties, of course, here back here in Uganda. And of course City Oilers, who are the 10-time champions of the FUBA Basketball League here in Uganda, of course back-to-back champions, trying to see that they can ensure their dominance when it comes to Ugandan basketball. But of course, we are already into game 2 of the best of 7 series, and already it seems like things are looking good for the City Oilers, of course, as they have taken a 2-0 lead against the Namungo Blazers, of course, having played yesterday at the Lugogo Indoor Arena and putting off a 90-83 scoreboard. Of course, City Oilers bringing on the likes of Kat Curry, of course, coming through to give a masterclass and to show why he was signed to this prestigious club. But of course, not forgetting Namungo Blazers also having the likes of Jimmy Enabu, Titus Okello, Anthony Chukwu coming through and going to show why they are also being signed to such a club. So we're already into game 2 of the best of 7 series in the NBL FUBA playoffs. We can't wait to see who the winner is. So on the women's side, we are having the likes of JT Jaguars and JKL Lady Dolphins. Of course, JKL Lady Dolphins being the record champions, of course, here in the FUBA Women's Basketball League. So it goes on to show you that they are also trying to cement their legacy when it comes to Ugandan basketball, of course, female basketball. So you get to realize that JT Lady Jaguars giving a shocker and trying to show that indeed they have come to show that they are also good competitors and also trying to give it their all when it comes to FUBA women's basketball. So of course, qualifying for the finals and having to see that all is there to play for. So best of 7, JKL Lady Dolphins is also leading 2-1, of course, and we're already into game 3, so we can't wait to see what's going to happen when it comes to who is going to win the NBL season, obviously. Of course, we saw Lady Dolphins, of course, qualifying, but of course also JT Jaguars also coming through and also qualifying as well. So also on the main side, Namungo Blazers, of course, dominating in regular season, but also City Oilers finding their way into the playoff spots and showing that they are also seniors when it comes to Ugandan basketball. So we can't wait to see what's going to happen when it come the next games that are of course going to be on this week, and you can catch them live on NBA Sport or any other platform that will be designated for those games. So away from Ugandan basketball, we're going to talk some bit of CAF Champions League. So we are taking it high. Of course, we're in Africa. We're into the African qualifiers for the African Champions League. Of course, the CAF Champions League that everybody knows, and you'll get to realize that so many teams in the African setting have been coming through to try and qualify for the next stage of the CAF Champions League. And various teams have been coming through to showcase what they have. Of course, we have been having some bit of surprises, of course, here and there. But of course, it didn't stop people from trying to see what their teams can produce. So, of course, the highlight of these qualifiers, as you can see, is the game between Orlando Pirates and St. Elio Lumpopo. So that is something that is a team that is a game that everybody was looking forward to, and you get to realize that it was quite catastrophic, if that's the best word I can use, obviously. So you get to realize that in the first leg of second qualifiers, Orlando Pirates went 3 goals. They went 3-0 down away to St. Elio. But when it came to the second leg or the return leg of the qualifiers, obviously taking it all to South Africa, and of course seeing that Orlando Pirates was trying to fight their way back, it went on, and of course they forced a penalty shootout, of course winning in regular time 3-0. But then again, this team proved too heavy for Orlando Pirates. Of course, Orlando Pirates being good participants when it comes to the CAF Champions League. Of course, last season being semi-finalists, but of course losing out to Pyramids FC, who eventually won the Champions League title in the previous season. And of course, they proved too tight for the debutants. Of course, you get to realize that Orlando Pirates, having the visibility that they have, I think it overpowered and overshadowed them. But of course, that alone didn't contribute to that. But of course, as you can see, the team shocking them, and of course, Orlando Pirates missing out on CAF Champions League group stage football. And we can't wait to see what's going to happen. I think the other one that people would be looking out for, of course, Orlando Pirates losing out 4-5 on penalty shootouts, and it didn't sit well with them. But of course, after the full-time scene, you get to understand that football is all about winning and of course losing, but also learning as well. The other game, of course, that would have caught the eyes of football lovers, that of course here in Africa, that is maybe the game between Mamelodi Sundowns and Remo Stars. But of course, Mamelodi Sundowns proving too good for Remo Stars and winning their game 2-0. Of course, Dennis Onyango, who was in goal as well, that is the Ugandan shortstopper. Then I think the game that also caught people's attention, obviously, was the game between Power Dynamos and Vipers Soccer Club. Of course, Vipers Soccer Club being the country's only representatives on the continental showpiece after NEC Football Club bowing out in the first stage of qualifiers to Nairobi Sugar, of course, in the Confederations Cup. So that left us with Vipers only. But of course now Vipers losing their game at Kitende, losing 2-1 to Power Dynamos, then again going to Zambia and drawing their game 1-1, of course giving the advantage to Power Dynamos, of course ensuring that Power Dynamos would qualify for group stage football. Of course that marks that would have marked that marks the end of the run to Champions League football for Vipers for this season. But we wait and see, of course, as they come back to defend their title and see if they can qualify again. And maybe the other game that caught the attention was the game between Singida Black Stars and of course Khalid Aucho, of course, winning the game, of course going to feature as well for the Tanzania-based team. So we can't wait to see what's going to happen when it comes to Champions League football. So all is set, but of course maybe the other game that the other games that would bring a lot of attention and controversy, maybe it's the games of Pyramids FC and RS Berkane. So RS Berkane and Pyramids FC, of course the two teams that won the Confederations Cup and the Champions League last season, obviously. Pyramids haven't played. They didn't play their game, of course, this weekend, this previous match day. But of course, hope to play their game in the coming weekend. So we can't wait and see. But of course, RS Berkane, of course, these two teams having versed themselves in the CAF Confederation Super Cup. Actually, the Super Cup, of course, that's between the winner of the Champions League and the Confederations Cup, and of course, Pyramids FC coming on top, courtesy of Isaac Mayelu goal. So the two teams are yet to play their game, so wait and see. Of course, as you can see, Pyramids is yet to play Ethiopian Insurance, and then RS Berkane is yet to play Al Ahly Tripoli, of course, from Libya. So we wait and see what's going to happen when it comes to Champions League football. So it's been a weekend of roller coasters here and there when it comes to the football scene and the basketball scene. So we wait and see what's going to happen. So away from the CAF Champions League, we're going to take it a little bit higher and get to understand what has been happening, of course, over the weekend. So you'll get to realize that we're going to move into some bit of Premier League football that has been taking place, of course, and we are match week 8 into the Premier League, and as you can see on your screen, it's been a plethora of so many shockers, of course, left, right. We are seeing things. People are seeing things that they least expected. Of course, their team's not performing, and of course, not sitting well. So as you can see on your screen, that is how things went down in match day 8, and as you can see there. We have Leeds United coming on top against West Ham United. Of course, that is 2-1. And then Chelsea being stunned by Sunderland. 2-1 as well at the bridge. Of course, after taking an early lead. But of course, surrendering it in the second half. And of course, conceding what I could term as a weird and unforgivable winner, stoppage time winner against a newly promoted Sunderland, ensuring that the two teams, that Sunderland, the Black Cats, of course, got all 3 points away from the bridge and coming out as winners. So, of course, that didn't sit well with the Chelsea fans, but of course, life has to go on. And then we are having Newcastle winning their game against Fulham, a high-flying Fulham. And of course, Manchester United coming through big this weekend's highest scorers, of course, winning their game 4-2 against Brighton. And then Brentford stunning Liverpool, something people did not expect. They stunned Liverpool 3-2 at the GTEC Stadium. And of course, this has gone on to show, to bring more questions into Arne Slot's coaching tactics, but of course football is football. Then on Sunday we had Arsenal, of course, clinching their game against Crystal Palace, that is courtesy of Anne Berechi as a goal. And then Aston Villa stunning Manchester City, something people did not expect, but of course Man City were beaten 1-0 by Aston Villa. And then Bournemouth winning their game 2-0 against a Nottingham Forest that has just gotten Sean Dyche as their coach. And then the other game, that is Tottenham winning their game against Everton at the Hillsborough Stadium, of course, in Everton, that is Merseyside. So it goes on to show you how things are standing. So I don't know if my producer can put the table standing so that my viewers can see how things are going for their teams. But as you know, the top six is having the likes of Arsenal, Sunderland, Tottenham Hotspurs, Manchester City, Manchester United. Yeah, thank you very much. So we are having Arsenal leading the way, Bournemouth coming through as number 2, Tottenham coming in as number 3, Sunderland closing the top 4, Manchester City, the two Manchester clubs coming through as the top 6, and then Liverpool, Aston Villa, Chelsea and Crystal Palace making the top 10. So it goes on to show you how tough the competition is. So if we continue down, we are going to see that Brentford is 11th, and then we are having Newcastle coming through as 12th, then Brighton and Hove Albion coming through as well, and then we are having Everton, Leeds, Burnley and Fulham making the top 17, and of course the bottom half having Nottingham Forest, West Ham and Wolverhampton Wanderers, who are yet to win a game this term, and things aren't looking good for them currently, but we hope all goes well. So away from the Premier League, we had some action as well in the La Liga, in the La Liga, of course, in Spain, and of course the game that had the game that had a lot of people talking, that was the game between Real Madrid and Barcelona. Of course, very many people expected a lot to happen, and I think they were treated to what they had anticipated, obviously. So we had the El Clasico going down yesterday at the Santiago Bernabeu, but of course certain things transpired, obviously, of course, with the exploding interview that Lamine Yamal had on one of the podcasts before coming onto the field, obviously, and controversies coming through left, right. So yesterday we were treated to a plethora, but of course this match day, of course, that is in La Liga, we are match day 10 out of the 38, and we had Real Sociedad winning their game against Sevilla, and then 2-1, and then Girona and Real Oviedo winning drawing their game 3-3, Espanyol and winning their game against Elche, that is 1-0, Athletic Club being stunned by Getafe 1-0 at the Stan Mamés in Spain, and then Villarreal winning their game against Valencia, and then Mallorca and Levante playing out a 1-1 draw, and then Osasuna losing their game to Celta Vigo, that is 3-2, and Real Vallecano winning their game against Deportivo Alaves. And then the game of the weekend, that was Real Madrid and Barcelona. Of course, Real Madrid winning their game 2-1 against Barcelona, but of course seeing 2 red cards being issued out there. So of course today we have action going through, and we are having the likes of Real Betis taking on Atletico Madrid. So Real Betis, of course, you should know that is a very high-flying team. of course being coached by Manuel Pellegrini, who formerly coached Manchester City, and Atletico Madrid being coached by Diego Simeone, but of course boasting of the likes of Marcos Llorente, Saúl Ñíguez, Koke, and having the likes of Julian Alvarez and then Alexander Siloth, of course, coming through. So this is going to be a very interesting game, obviously. I believe it's going to be a game of goals, because you get to realize that when you have a Real Betis that has Anthony, having Isco, that is having Checa, Fernandez, and etc., all of William, all of them there, goes on to show you how competitive this game is going to be. So we wait and see what's going to happen, obviously. So away from the La Liga, we have some bit of NBA. Of course, we are into the NBA regular season, as you can see on your screens there, and we've been having a lot of action going through, obviously, when it comes to the NBA basketball league. Of course, for the lovers of basketball, you get to realize that the games are on and the teams are playing, obviously, so you get to understand what's going to happen, obviously. So today we had some action going through this morning, and we had the Washington Wizards losing out to the Sacramento Hornets, of course, in game 1 today, and then the Cavaliers winning the game against the Milwaukee Bucks, something that nobody expected, but wait and see. So the other game we had was the Miami Heat, of course, winning the game against the Kicks, the New York Kicks, obviously, and then the Minnesota Timberwolves winning their game, of course, against the Indiana Pacers. But of course, it shocked very many, because the Indiana Pacers were last season's finalists, of course, losing out to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then we're having the Maverick Dallas, of course, winning the game against the Toronto Raptors. Of course, the Maverick Dallas have boasting of the likes of Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, and D'Angelo Russell, obviously. So when you have such on your roster, it goes on to show you how tough and how big the team is becoming. So of course, the other game we had LA Clippers taking on the Minnesota Trail Blazers as well. Of course, LA Clippers coming, so that is James Harden's team. And then I think the game that everybody was anticipating, of course, LeBron James's LA Lakers. Of course, LeBron James sitting out on this one here, but of course the team winning 127 points to 120, of course, against the Sacramento Kings. Of course, ensuring that they can proceed as well. So of course, we have some games going to go through, obviously. The next games are going to be going on. Of course, we are in the regular season, and we can't wait to see what's going to happen, of course, when it comes to the basketball, of course, the NBA, because we know you love the game and you live for it, obviously. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for listening in, for watching, and for always sticking in when it comes to sports business, obviously. We, of course, remember, I want you to know that we go beyond the lines when it comes to this sports business, and we can't wait to hear from you guys and see what you guys love about the football, the rugby, the basketball, the tennis, whichever. You name it, we bring it to you on your screen. I have been your host, Keith. I want to thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see you next week, of course, on our channel, obviously, that is Beyond the Lines. I'll see you soon, and stay blessed. Thank you.